Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episodic adventure. We, the people, let's talk. And we are going to do a lot of talking. I'm very loquacious, as I've indicated in previous formats, okay, the debut, so on and so forth. Without wasting too much time, which I do a lot, I'd like to introduce my guest, okay, online, for your viewing. Representative Anthony Sabatini. Welcome.
Thanks, George.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
How are you?
Never been better.
Never been better? It'll be better, though, okay, when you get into that position as a congressman on the federal level. Mm-hmm. I'm excited about that. Are you?
It's going to be a good time.
Okay. Anyhow, I'd like to get some background information about you, okay? We'll spend about a minute or maybe 2 minutes maximum, all right? And then we'll go into the political aspects. Background. Tell me about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm from Lake County, right next door, just northwest of here from Osceola County. I've lived in Lake County pretty much my whole life. My family came down when I was about a year old. Went to public school there, went to college and law school at the University of Florida, did some traveling and came back. But when I was working after college, I moved to New York City for 2 years. And so when I went up there for a job, I called that the beginning of my road to Damascus conversion to politics, because I had never lived in such a radical leftist progressive place. And so I got me really interested in my roots and Republican Party and my conservative views that of course surrounded me when I was growing up in Central Florida. And so I got involved with politics and ran for city council, became a city commissioner in Eustis. This is after I moved back. And I was a city commissioner for 2 years in the city of Eustis, and then got elected to the state house. And I've been in the House for 3 years now. And I'm the most conservative elected official in the state legislature.
I've seen some of the literature. You're a staunch conservative. Does that really give meaning to where you actually stand?
Well, conservative has completely and totally lost its meaning, especially in the last 5 years. I think to be a conservative means you want to conserve things. And the traditional old conservative views and conservatives that were antithetical and hostile to Donald Trump in the America First movement thought that for some reason Trump in the America First nationalist populist movement was not conservative, like based on the 1980s boring Heritage Foundation definition of a conservative. But the Trump America First movement is better and more interested in conserving what it means to be an American in this country and our sovereignty than the old boring, stupid conservatives from the 80s, 90s, Bush era, Mitt Romney era. And so I think that's what it means to be conservative. And so, yeah, I mean, for me, conservative means less government, less taxes, true. But also standing up and fighting for the idea of being an American, our border, sovereignty, our traditions, religious freedom, and standing up against not just government, but large corporations like big tech, woke corporations, and globalism, which want to flatline our society and make us a sort of textureless, boring, genderless, stupid society. So fighting that means you're a conservative, and that's what I do.
I like that. You're direct. You're on target. When you say something, you mean that, okay? What made you motivated, okay, to go to our U.S. Senate? Who are you going to replace?
Well, U.S. Congress is what I'm running for.
Yes.
There's actually going to be a brand new congressional seat coming to Central Florida. The fastest growing area of Florida is right here. Polk, Osceola, Orange Lake, Sumter, Seminole, Marion counties, the whole kind of greater Orlando area is the fastest growing once again. So this is where the new seat, because of the U.S. Census, goes. So I'll be filing for that seat. I'm actually already a filed candidate, raised a lot of money, got a lot of support. But the seat that I'm running for won't be created for a few more months. So I'm filed for District 11, which is occupied, but I'll shift to the new one very soon.
Hopefully by September, we'll have that redistricting set.
Unless they take the Stephanie Murphy seat from Seminole County and draw that into Lake County, which is a very, very possible option. So it's either the new seat or the Seminole seat that comes into Lake County in our area.
Now I'm going to ask you this question. Do you consider yourself a politician or a statesman?
Neither. I'm just a normal guy. Happen to be in elected office. Well, I'm not even. It's a full-time. It's not even a full-time job in Florida. Being a state rep is part-time. You go, you do the right thing, you go home, and you're a citizen. I'm an officer in the Florida Army National Guard, but I identify more as a citizen than I do a military officer because it's part-time. This is part-time too. So just a normal guy.
Let's talk about this legislative session. Do you think it was a success, and did you sponsor any bills?
Yes, I sponsored quite a few bills.
Tell me.
And I've had 5 of my bills signed into law by Governor DeSantis, all conservative bills deleting government, cutting taxes, protecting our veterans, all different types of stuff. This year, I really pushed a lot of big issues, and parts of those bills ended up becoming law. The big tech censorship bill, I was the first to file a bill on that, and the product that was signed into law had pieces of it. The ban on transgender men infiltrating girls' sports in public school, that became the law in Florida. We banned that. That was originally my bill. So those were some of the bills.
Do you think this legislative session could have done more?
Oh yeah, we could always do more. The biggest problem we have right now is, even in Florida where our legislature is doing a good job and our governor is the best governor in the country, there's always so much more we can do. So when people applaud our party and applaud the governor and the state house and the party as a whole, I think it's actually detrimental, because there's so much more we need to do, and we need to be fighting so much harder on so many turfs that it's bad to rest on our laurels by saying, hey, we passed this one bill, or we did some little thing here or there. It's like, no, we need to deinstitutionalize the left in our country. I was the only person this year to vote against the state budget. And the reason I did that is because I will never support state funding Marxist institutions in our state. We subsidize our own destruction. The colleges and universities and local governments in this state are doing everything they can to use taxpayer money to harm the institutions that made this country great, and the beliefs and the popular beliefs that are the foundation for our country. And so the Republican Party loves to talk about 1 or 2 good bills they did. Hey, we did the anti-riot bill to stop the BLM anti-police riots. Hey, we did the transgender thing to protect girls for another day. It's like, yeah, that's great, but that's the baseline. Like, I'm glad you did that. There's so much more we need to do. We need to start shutting down these leftist institutions because they're a threat. They're a threat to our whole country.
What about the educational system? We have teachers, not so much here, but not willing to go back to work. Okay? Even though they may have gotten the vaccine, so on and so forth. It looks like they're more concerned about themselves, okay, than they are going back into the classroom situation instead of being online.
Yep.
What's your feeling?
Well, I think the teachers are great. Most of the teachers I know are not political, not partisan, not trying to make a point. They just want to do their job. It's the teachers' union and the education establishment and their lobbyists, cronies, and vendors that are really the problem. And they're the ones who create the climate to try to co-opt normal, I guess you could call line, just normal run-of-the-mill teachers into some of the views that those institutions have adopted. And that's who we need to be targeting. We really shouldn't even allow, we really need to dismantle the public teachers unions. They're a threat to our society. And, they really, if they had it their way, they would have completely destroyed and stunted the learning and educational development of a whole generation of children in this state had we not had Republican control. So it's pretty disturbing what they do, and I really see them as more than an adversary, but really a threat to the stability of our state.
Let's talk about the critical race theory, okay? How do you feel about that and white supremacy, all these accusations being made?
I hate to use terms of art unless I have to. I'll refer to it as critical race theory if I have, but let's just call it straight up what it is. It's anti-white racism. That's all it is. It's anti-white, particularly white Christian straight males, but it's anti-white racism. They just repackage it in this fancy sounding academic terms. Listen, I went to UF. I graduated magna cum laude. I went through, had double major, almost double minored, and spent time there in law school too. I'm just exhausted by these stupid liberals and the weird, goofy stuff they do to try to package their insane ideas. It's straight up anti-white racism. They hate white people. They really don't like anybody, but they just really hate the history of our country, and they hate Christians, they hate whites, they hate men, and they've just found a funny way to package it. And once again, one of my disappointments in the Republican Party is we drag our feet on this stuff. You know, they're like, oh, now it's a big issue because it's making its way into the K through 12 system. It's been in the university system for decades. We've been subsidizing it in the colleges. Where do you think it was going to go? Stay there? No, it spreads to the media, into the public sphere, and of course into our institutions like K through 12. So it's time to really shut it down, not just in the K through 12 schools, but on the college campuses. Why are we subsidizing that? You know, if somebody wants to go take that course, they should pay market rate. You know, they should pay $50,000 to go take that course if they want. But But we shouldn't be able to subsidize it.
Do you think we should counteract this project 1619 with the 1776? Do you think it's worthy of investing our time, effort, money, and everything else in 1776 project?
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. We should have been doing that from the start. You know, and our civics curriculum isn't as bad as people say it is. It could be better. Could be a lot better, but it's not terrible.
In what respect?
Some of the stuff you have to learn in high school. It's just, the problem is the teachers in the education establishment not teaching it correctly. You know, I took an American government class. I had an amazing teacher in public school, and it was very patriotic, and we really enjoyed it. But that's not the education a lot of these kids are getting, which means that people need to be active, get involved with their school boards, and get rid of the local establishments so they can teach the curriculum that we've created better, because the curriculum isn't terrible. Now, the 1619 stuff should be completely illegal. It should be obviously illegal, shut down.
Let me ask you about allegations made about voter fraud. You know, we're talking about voter integrity, voter registration. Do you think what was done this legislative session relative to that, with the governor signing it, was sufficient, was enough?
No. No, it was good. It was a good step forward, but it wasn't nearly sufficient. It wasn't nearly enough. I wouldn't even call it 25% sufficient. It was a good step. It banned the Mark Zuckerberg money for being used in the outside elections, did some other really good stuff, but it really should have went a lot further. We need to really clamp down on absentee ballots. We need to make sure that you have a thumbprint like Texas is proposing on those absentee ballots for each person. I think even maybe 2 witness signatures or a notary like they do in North Carolina on those. And then we really need to ban ballot boxes. There's a lot of stuff we really need to do that isn't part of that bill. That bill was a little bit of window dressing.
Are you making any further recommendations to the governor?
And I'll be filing another bill, yeah.
Another bill, okay. How much detail? Can you give us an idea?
Sure.
What's going to be included?
The things I just mentioned, and then also a citizens committee that allows for automatic audits and hand counts of these elections when they occur, and more laws to trace chain of custody better. So things like that.
What about Dominion? I think all the counties are using that.
Well, I co-sponsored a bill this year to ban Dominion because the bill would have said you have to use American-based software and hardware in your elections equipment. Dominion's not American, but they killed the bill. The rhinos killed the bill.
By what number?
You want me to pull the number up?
Yeah, I want you to do it.
Why not? Yeah, there's about 2,000 bills that get filed every year, so even the bills you file, you'll forget the names of unless you're working on them daily, which they killed that bill pretty quick.
You should have this at the tip of your fingers, which you will.
No, I don't think anyone's going to remember every number for every bill. Well, continue the conversation. I'll pull it up because it's been a while since we've been out for a month now. So
okay, how much of a difference will you make when you become the congressman representing at least a portion, hopefully, of Osceola County?
Oh, by the way, it's House Bill 203.
House Bill 203.
House Bill 203 from 2021. So it's I'm sure your listeners will go look it up. Say, what was the question again?
Well, how much of a difference will you make when you become a congressman on the federal level?
A big one, because
you have a lot of those rhinos.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
The differences that come from being just one extra vote. Yeah, I'll be one extra vote for the Freedom Caucus, for the conservative wing of the party. But the real influence comes from changing the conversation, like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz were able to do, or Donald Trump was able to do, because they take on the media, they take on narratives, and they push back what's considered the rules of the game and the establishment narrative. Whereas most Republicans, like a lot of ones, especially here in Florida, are just sort of cowardly and meek and just kind of go along with all the narratives and get
Those
control.
are strong terms. Cowardly and meek.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't heard that.
They are. I mean, we have a very cowardly group of elected officials who are very afraid to do anything that's going to expose them to criticism from the media and from the left, and so they're just sort of.
These are the establishment Republicans.
Yes.
Mostly. Okay. Do you consider yourself like a Trumpite, a person following in his footsteps and his path, or what have you, in terms of legislation?
I'm a gigantic supporter of the president, if that's what you mean, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Whatever possessed you to get involved in politics?
I've mentioned it earlier.
I want to hear it again.
Yeah, so I moved to New York, and I didn't really care much about politics. I didn't think that politics mattered much because I was a young 20-something kid without really serious thoughts about anything. But then what happened is, being in a really nasty, politically liberal environment, culturally relativistic environment, progressive environment, and the sort of smarmy, elite snobbery that you're surrounded with, living in a place like New York City, shook me. So that's where it came from. And I started to wonder why people were like that and why the government was ordered the way it was and just why people thought that way and why was there a loss of community? Why was there a loss of courage and individual initiative, and why I just felt like my generation was so conformist. That's what it is. Liberalism at the end of the day is really, what's scary about it is it's an extremely conformist mentality and conformist feeling, conformist sort of movement that people who aren't conformists are very suspicious of.
What's your opinion of the squad, AOC and Omar, so on and so forth? And
Well,
how much of effect do they really have on legislation?
Huge. AOC is one of the most powerful elected officials in the country, period. They have a huge effect. They really, Pelosi and the establishment Dems, although they're very far left, they're very afraid of the even farther left socialist wing of their own party, to the point where they, grant them legislative wins and victories. The Green New Deal has now become part of the Democrat platform. And they're very successful in moving the Overton window. Are you familiar with the Overton window?
Yes,
so
I am.
they shift what's considered normal political viewpoints from extreme to acceptable rather quickly. I mean, the Green New Deal was a laughing matter when it started. Now it's really pretty normal viewpoint for them and a lot of independents in this country that don't know much about it. Same with defund the police. I thought the worst reaction to the defund the police was what the Republicans did, which is laugh it off and say that's crazy, but also adopt the narrative, because what they did is they've normalized it to the point where now, cities and counties are talking seriously about shutting down certain police activities. Not the whole police, but reimagining the police in a way that they don't actually confront crime as often as they usually would. It's pretty scary. They can change the conversation, change the mentality of our country pretty successfully.
What's your belief or stance on climate change?
I think there's always been some change. The real question is about two things. One is how much of the change is coming from human activity, which I would even admit that there probably is some come from human activity. But the other relevant question is what can be done to stop it and change it. And of course, I strongly disagree with the Democrats that their approach would do anything to change or alter climate change at this point.
Even doling out money to China or India and everything else?
Yeah, well, it's funny you bring them up. Those are the nations that are most responsible for, if there is going to be human effect on climate change, late industrialized nations are the ones that are more responsible.
How much of an impact did this COVID situation have on voting?
Well, it allowed the Democrats to sort of legally steal the election in Pennsylvania, Georgia, to a degree Arizona, maybe Michigan, but definitely several states were stolen through ultra vires, extra legal means because of the COVID pretext.
What do you think about Dr. Fauci You don't have to wear a mask. You wear a mask. You could create your own mask, wear a double mask. Kids over 2 years old should be wearing a mask, so on and so forth.
I think he should be in jail for the rest of his life. I mean that quite literally. I think he's actually probably top 5, top 3 maybe, most destructive person in the history of our country, just whose ideas are so polluted and incorrect that he's able to cause literally trillions of dollars worth of damage, lost lives, and just bullying, and really ushered in a new era of quasi-socialistic government in our country. And he should be in jail for that. I think he's an awful human being.
What's your attitude towards Cuomo, de Blasio, Newsom, with their lockdowns?
They're tyrants. They're psychotic. They should be impeached and deported from our nation. But that probably won't happen because they're in places where the sheeple just don't even know the difference between a politician and a statesman. Like you said earlier, I'm trying to humble myself when I call myself a statesman. That's a very humble way to brag. I see myself just as a citizen. But they live in states where they'll probably can remain in power until there's utter destruction, until like literally the state becomes unfeasible and destroyed, which might not happen because the federal government's acting as a backstop for these failed states and cities. But you know, it's terrible.
What's your feeling about term limits?
I think it's one of the single most important political issues, period. And I think every single elected official should be term limited, literally every one, from HOA boards all the way through school boards, county commissions, city commissions, state,
What are we
federal.
talking? 2 years, 4 years,
and
6
judges
years? How
should be
much?
term limited.
What time?
Depends on the office.
A senator
The truth
on
of the
the
matter
federal
is,
level.
there's all these insane debates about that. I think 2 terms for a U.S. senator, so 12 years total, and 8 for Congress is great. 8 years total, which is 4 2-year terms, is fine. So, but there's other arguments for other ones. We just need term limits. Period. That's what matters.
Okay. I think I've covered the gamut of all things that I wanted to ask you. It certainly was a pleasure taking your time here, and even though you were late, okay, I have to say that, you know, because of traffic, because of what have you. It's a sheer joy in having you here and being very succinct and very direct in your answers, and I appreciate that, and I hope the viewers do too. Anyhow, I'd like to conclude this. Again, I thank Anthony Sabatini, and I wish him the best in his election process, be it what it may. And we'll see you next time on We the People, Let's Talk.